President Yoon calls for a one-stop support center.
It was no doubt a sleepless night for defense authorities here as North Korea launched more missiles and unleashed artillery fire overnight, following news that South Korea and the U.S. are extending their joint military drills. Our defense minister correspondent Heung-min starts us off.
At around 9:30 p.m. on Thursday night, North Korea fired 3 short-range ballistic missiles toward waters off its east coast. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said the missiles flew 490 kilometers at an altitude of up to 130 kilometers at a speed of Mach 6. The military condemned the North and urged it to immediately halt its provocations, saying they pose a serious threat to the peace and security of the Korean Peninsula, as well as the international community. But the North didn't stop there, as it fired about 80 artillery rounds 2 hours later, again toward the East Sea. Seoul's military said they landed in the maritime buffer zones, in place to ease military tensions. It strongly criticized the regime, saying that the recent series of actions from the North is a clear violation of the inter-Korean agreement signed in 2018. The North's latest activities appear to be a protest against the decision made by South Korea and the U.S. to extend aerial military drills that have been taking place since Monday because of the regime's continued provocations. The Vigilant Storm exercise involving some 240 warplanes has been extended by a day and will continue until Saturday. About an hour before Thursday's missile launch, North Korea warned the decision to extend was an enormous mistake that would spark an uncontrollable phase. Following the combined aerial drill starting next Monday, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said it will hold this year's Taeguk exercise. It said the 4 days of training are aimed at enhancing operational capability to counter North Korea's various nuclear and missile threats. Heung-min, Arirang News.
In related news, the UN Security Council will hold an open meeting on Friday to address North Korea's aggressive military activities. According to Reuters, the meeting was requested by the U.S. after multiple missiles by Pyongyang, including a possibly failed intercontinental ballistic missile. The UK, France, Norway, Albania and Ireland joined the US in calling for talks on the UN platform. Now, Seoul's foreign ministry says South Korea will take part in the talks as a stakeholder. Friday's gathering comes a month after a Security Council meeting was held following Pyongyang's launch of an intermediate-range ballistic missile over Japan in early October. South Korea and the U.S. have denounced the most recent displays of defiance by North Korea and have decided to deploy more nuclear-capable assets to the peninsula to firmly extend deterrence against related threats. My colleague Ji-young explains.
Hours after Pyongyang launched yet another round of ballistic missiles, South Korea and the U.S. agreed extended deterrence against the regime's nuclear threats. This could see more nuclear-capable strategic assets deployed in and around the peninsula. South Korean Defense Minister Lee Jong-sub and his U.S. counterpart Lloyd Austin at their annual security consultative meeting held at the Pentagon on Thursday warned North Korea against using any nuclear weapons.
We strongly condemn the DPRK's irresponsible and reckless activities. As we said before, these kinds of activities are destabilizing to the region, potentially. So we call on them to cease that type of activity and to begin to engage in serious dialogue.
He added that any North Korean nuclear attack against the United States or its allies would, quote, result in the end of the Kim regime. Stressing that the alliance with Seoul is ironclad, he said the U.S. will remain fully committed to the defense of South Korea.
Secretary Austin committed to the provision of extended deterrence to the Republic of Korea, leveraging the full range of military capabilities, including not only nuclear and conventional forces and missile defense capabilities, but also advanced non-nuclear capabilities such as space, cyber, and electromagnetic capability.
He also said Pyongyang appears to be ready to conduct a nuclear test, but added it is hard to predict when it might happen. Minister Lee and Secretary Austin, shortly after the meeting, also visited a U.S. air base, Joint Base Andrews in Maryland, for a briefing and a tour of nuclear-capable B-1B and B-52 strategic bombers. He said the visit to the base signals that the allies will react more sternly, which would be diametrically different from previous responses should Pyongyang carry out a nuclear provocation. Also, through increasing the frequency and intensity of strategic asset deployment in and around the Korean peninsula, the U.S. plans on creating an effect that's equivalent to constantly stationing them in South Korea. 엄지영, Arirang News.
President Yoon Suk-yeol sat down with visiting German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier earlier on this Friday for talks on bolstering bilateral ties. Discussions included joint efforts to ensure stable supply chains and energy security based on already active economic exchanges centered on hydrogen and chips. President Yoon also called for fair and inclusive market practices as Korean businesses seek to expand their ventures amid signs of protectionism in Europe. On security, both Yoon and Steinmeier shared their grave concerns over North Korea's brinkmanship and their support of Ukraine amid Russia's aggression. They also agreed to cooperate to improve human rights in North Korea. People here are braving the abrupt plunge in mercury levels to pay their respects and share their condolences at memorials set up amid the Halloween tragedy this past weekend. I have my colleague HeungMin standing by live at Seoul Plaza. Min-jung.
Hi, Sunny. I'm here at Seoul Plaza, where one of the memorial altars has been set up since Monday. It's a very chilly day today, but despite that, many people are here to mourn in silence. So far, as of Thursday evening, a total of more than 96,000 people have paid their respects to the victims at memorial sites set up in the capital. We saw more than 19,000 people offer their condolences in Seoul yesterday alone. Just a little earlier this morning at around 9 a.m., President Yoon Suk-yeol visited this altar once again. President Yoon has been visiting memorial altars every morning since Monday. President of Germany Frank-Walter Steinmeier, who is on a short visit to Korea, also came here to Seoul Plaza this morning to offer his condolences. Thailand's Minister of Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation, and Sri Lanka's Minister of Labor and Foreign Employment were also here to pay their respects.
Our thoughts and our feelings in Thailand are deep sorrow. I can say that on behalf of the Thai government, which I am part of, and on behalf of the Thai people, we hope that Korea, particularly Korean youth, would rise up, would stand up and walk ahead. And we hope that these kinds of incidents would not happen again, not only in Korea, but in any part of the world.
It is tragic that this incident happened, but it is something we cannot blame anyone for. Sri Lanka, being a friend of South Korea, we express our deepest condolences to those who have lost their loved ones.
Other public figures, including Seoul Mayor Oh Se-hoon and a number of ambassadors to South Korea, visited the altar here at Seoul Plaza to pay tribute as well. I also talked to some of the citizens who came to grieve amid shock and disbelief.
I hope the deceased can have a better, happier existence at peace now.
I myself often go to Itaewon, so I feel closely linked to the tragedy. I came here on my way to work.
Right, this tragedy, Min-jung, it's bringing the country together as it seeks to understand the senseless loss. And before you go, Min-jung, do we have any updates with regard to the actual accident?
Right, Sunny, as of 11 a.m. today, the number of deaths remains at 156. As we already know, 130 of them are Koreans and 26 are foreign nationals. Among the injured, 33 people are still being treated at local hospitals, and the rest have returned home after receiving treatment. Officials say funerals have been held for all but one Korean national. And funerals have also been held for 7 foreign nationals, with some already returned to their home countries. Several memorial altars have been set up in 25 districts of Seoul, where people can continue to pay tribute until this Saturday, which is the last day of the week-long national mourning period. The altar here at Seoul Plaza is open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., but people can come here and pay their respects outside these hours. That's all I have for now. Back to you, Sunny.
All right, Min Jung, thank you for the latest. That was our Cho Min Jung reporting live from Seoul Plaza at this hour. Along with these sad stories of loss on the night of the tragedy in Itaewon are these stories of ordinary heroes who sought to save lives. Among them were 2 selfless brothers from Pakistan. Our Ishi-Hu met up with them.
It was the brothers' first time visiting Itaewon together. But when they arrived in the area, they immediately realized something wasn't right.
Before Saturday, I didn't see these types of crowd in there or here. So that time I realized my feelings was that it can be dangerous. So
that's when they witnessed the start of the tragedy.
Incident was in 1 or 2 minutes. I didn't see like this. Within 1 or 2 minutes, the people's down and it started.
A registered nurse in Pakistan with 7 years of experience, 30-year-old Shabir Muhammad was on vacation to visit his older brother Mahmood, who lives in South Korea. And when he saw people needing help, he knew he had to act.
Nothing I was thinking, just one thing in my mind, I can save him or her.
Without hesitation, Shabir began conducting CPR on the fallen. Along with chest compressions, he gave rescue breaths and did whatever he could using his medical knowledge. His efforts continued all night into the morning. Shabir helped save 4 lives.
I give CPR or help many people, 20+ people, but I could save only 4's life.
Others at the scene also did what they could do to help.
That wasn't great that people were doing together.
Yeah.
Like people were not thinking who they are, just helping them.
Despite the efforts, there were still those who couldn't make it.
So we are with those Korean people whose beloved people passed away. We are with them. We support them. The sadness is that we couldn't save more people.
Mahmood and Shabir show that it's not the badges or uniforms, but the courage that makes a hero. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
On the local economic front, the government is looking to boost investment in startups by offering tax incentives. Finance Minister Chu Kyung-ho shared intentions to this end on Friday during an emergency economic meeting, pointing out that investments in startups have been shrinking due to unfavorable economic conditions. Chu says the government will set up a private venture parent fund to boost the inflow of private capital into startups, which have been heavily dependent on government support. Companies that invest in the parent fund will receive a 5% tax credit, while individuals will receive 10%. In other news, the Bank of England has announced its greatest rate hike in over 30 years to stem, quote, stubbornly high inflation that is eroding the standard of living. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
As widely expected, the Bank of England on Thursday raised its key interest rate by 75 basis points, upping it to 3%. The latest move by the central bank marked the biggest single rate hike since 1989.
Today we've increased bank rate by 0.75 percentage points to 3%. This is the 8th consecutive increase in bank rate since December of last year. We've raised rates by a total of 2.9 percentage points during that period. These are big changes.
The central bank's 8th straight rate hike comes as inflation in the UK was running at a 40-year high of 10.1% in September. The very recent Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey gave the nod for the latest hike despite the burden on households.
So why are we doing it? And why are we doing it now when so many people are already struggling with higher energy and food prices and other bills? Well, quite simply, we're increasing bank rate because inflation is too high. and it's the bank's job to bring it down.
However, with prospects of a recession deepening in the UK, economists believe that the central bank will now step back a bit and take a more dovish approach. In fact, the Bank of England forecast a prolonged recession for the UK, which it said could be the longest economic contraction since records began. The latest announcement also impacted the UK stock market, with the FTSE 100 closing down 108 points at 18,110, while the FTSE 250 tumbled almost 300 points. The rate hike also impacted its currency, with the British pound falling below $1.12. This week alone, the US, the UK, Australia, and Norway have all raised interest rates in the latest sign that central banks remain in tightening mode to slow down the red-hot inflation. 이승재, Arirang News.
A cloud of uncertainty covers South Korea's opening match at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar late this month, as national team captain Heung-min is scheduled for surgery following an injury while on the field. Now, that being said, our Han-sung will sort out a medical expert here for better understanding of the prospects ahead. To take a look.
Bad news for South Korea's national football team just weeks ahead of the 2022 FIFA World Cup. Captain Heung-min will undergo surgery to stabilize a fracture around his left eye, sustained on Tuesday during the first half of Tottenham Hotspur's UEFA Champions League victory against Olympique de Marseille in France. That's according to Tottenham, which also announced through a press statement on Wednesday that the superstar will begin a rehabilitation process with the club's medical staff following surgery. British newspaper The Telegraph reports that Son suffered 4 fractures to his eye socket and that he will go under the knife on Friday, a day earlier than originally planned, giving him an extra day to recover before the World Cup begins. Korean medical experts say the injury is likely what's called a blowout fracture.
I intuited that he got blowout fracture when I saw his picture with his companies after match. Blowout fracture is a thin orbital medial and floor bone fracture surround the eyeball to protect, and the surgery with artificial bone graft is generally necessary.
Before Son was subbed off on Tuesday, the left side of his face had collided with Marseille defender Chancel Mbemba's shoulder in the 24th minute when challenging for an aerial ball. Tottenham will reportedly wait and see how Son responds to the surgery before placing any time frame on his recovery. Plastic and reconstructive surgeon Moon Kyung-chul believes, though, that it'll take 1 month to heal, meaning Son risks missing Korea's first Group H match against Uruguay 3 weeks from now in Qatar.
I recommend patients who underwent surgery of a blowout fracture that normal rehabilitation exercises such as jogging and lightweight training are possible after 2 weeks, but avoid vigorous exercise like football games in 1 month.
The physician also voiced concerns about double vision, a common complication after such surgery, but predicted that Son, albeit not all 90 minutes for each, may be able to play for the Taeguk Warriors against Ghana and Portugal. His injury comes at a critical juncture for both club and country, with Tottenham scheduled to face Liverpool in the English Premier League this weekend. 한성우, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In Pakistan, the country's former prime minister has been shot. The ex-PM Imran Khan was shot in the leg in what's being seen as an assassination attempt. 1 person has been killed and 6 injured in the shooting. The incident took place in the eastern city of Wazirabad on Thursday local time during the 7th day of a protest march bound for the capital of Islamabad to call for new elections. Officials say Khan sustained a non-life-threatening shot to his right leg and is in stable condition, receiving treatment. Authorities have apprehended a male suspect who was carrying a 9mm pistol and 2 empty magazines. Police released video of the man shows him confessing to the shooting. Moving on to India, where air quality in the capital New Delhi has reached severe and hazardous levels. According to local monitoring stations on Thursday, the capital's 20 million residents were breathing air that was so polluted it reached as high as 800 on the Air Quality Index. The index classes numbers below 50 as good, while levels above 500 are considered severe. In response, India's government has banned diesel trucks not carrying essential supplies. New Delhi had already stopped most construction and demolition work this week, with a request that residents reduce coal and firewood use and that they use carpooling to commute. Hazardous air quality is not uncommon during colder months in New Delhi, as heavier air traps particles from dust and emissions, and local farmers burn crops. In environmental news, some of the world's best-known glaciers, including those on Mount Kilimanjaro and in the Alps, will be completely gone by the year 2050. This is according to a UN report which says that as a result of global warming, about 30% of glacier World Heritage sites will disappear. It added that efforts to step up climate action will not save these ice caps. Still, there is some hope, as the report noted that the remaining glaciers could be preserved if the world limits global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The report comes just days ahead of the COP27 climate change conference in Egypt. And in our final story, Netflix has launched a new ad-supported service. Officially launched across 9 countries, including the US and Canada, the move aims to offer subscriptions at a lower price point. The new plan, called Basic with Ads, comes in at $6.99 per month and will include 4 to 5 minutes of advertisements per hour. Each ad will be approximately 15 to 30 seconds long, playing before and during streaming. The new plan also doesn't allow subscribers to download content for later. Meanwhile, licensing restrictions also means that some content isn't currently available on the Basic with Ads service, an issue Netflix says it is working to solve. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
This morning, Seoul saw its lowest temperature of the season. So the areas in purple, mainly in Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces, went below zero. Blue areas on the map show where it was below 5 degrees. Seoul dipped down to 1.6 degrees and feels like temperatures were even lower due to the wind chill. And it's going to be cold all day long, even in the afternoon, before temperatures begin to rise from Sunday morning. Lower temperatures might pose a threat to your health, so it's a great idea to wear gloves, hats, and mufflers to minimize exposure. And skies are bright and the air quality is good. Highs are hovering around the low to mid-teens, 5 to 6 degrees lower than the average. Seoul will see 10 degrees, 12 in Daejeon, and 14 in Daegu. And another issue is the risk of wildfire. Now that dry weather advisories have been expanded even further, please be extra careful not to cause a fire. And temperatures to return to the normal range from Sunday afternoon, with rain forecast for next Monday. Now, let's take a look at the worldwide weather conditions.
Right, those are the headlines at this hour, but do stay with us for our daily panel session coming up next. Thank you for now.